Well, thank you for joining us today. We often get questions about our new offering and why it's needed and what it covers. And so today we'll be giving you an overview about farmers, we'll go over insurance basics, as well as discuss the need for rideshare coverage and what the farmers offering provides. So let's move to slide 3 and give a little background on farmers insurance. So farmers insurance is rich in history and was established in 1928. We're almost 90 years old. We're recognized on the 2015 Fortune 500 list and serve over 10 million households nationwide through over 13,000 local knowledgeable exclusive agents. Farmers believes in the sharing economy and in providing our customer options. We're the first mainstream national carrier to offer rideshare coverage in early 2015 and currently have rideshare offerings in 5 states. Additionally, we have a breadth of insurance products to meet your needs, including automobiles, homes, businesses, and life insurance. So let's move to slide 4 and talk a little bit about insurance. So auto insurance can be confusing. You hear a lot of terms, comp and collision, liability only. This slide highlights some of the most common coverages a rideshare driver should be aware of. So let's go through some of these examples. In general, collision is when you hit something or something hits you and does damages to your car. Liability is damages when you hit someone else, so damages to someone else's car or that person. Comprehensive is damages for things other than a collision, so think of this as if you get theft or a tree falls on your car. Medical payments and personal injury protection would be coverage for the driver and the passengers. And then we have uninsured or underinsured motorists, and this is coverage for if they hit you. It's critical for rideshare drivers to understand that many of these coverages may not automatically be provided by a rideshare company during their entire rideshare timeline. We'll discuss the need for additional rideshare coverage in the next slide, followed by a visual explaining the types of coverage that may be provided in different periods of time during the rideshare drive. So let's move to slide 5, why rideshare coverage? Rideshare is relatively new, and it didn't exist 5 years ago. It's experienced exponential growth. In the past, personal auto insurance policies were not designed to provide rideshare drivers with coverage while they're working. As the industry matured, insurers began understanding more clearly the need to exclude these types of activities. And in 2014, state legislatures started passing laws to protect drivers that outline differences within the periods of time during a trip and minimum coverages for those periods. And to date, more than half of the states have adopted rideshare legislation. These changes provided guidance for insurers and rideshare companies to develop new products for drivers. So when a driver is engaged in rideshare activities, the driver may only have limited coverage when provided by the TNC, or the Transportation Network Company. For example, these would be companies like Uber and Lyft. So unless the driver secures additional rideshare coverage. Rideshare drivers need to be aware there are limitations to the coverages provided by rideshare companies, exposing drivers to potential gaps in their insurance. So let's go through a visual example. Moving to slide 6, the rideshare experience. As we developed our product, we wanted to provide 2 things. We wanted, 1, to have seamless coverage for the driver, and 2, be an economical solution. So let's discuss what's covered. This visual gives you 2 scenarios, coverages with a standard auto policy and one with a farmer's policy, including rideshare coverage. Let's go through the first example. So without additional rideshare coverage, once a driver logs into the rideshare affiliates app, their personal auto policy may no longer cover their vehicle and injuries they may sustain in an accident. Drivers may have only limited coverage from the rideshare company. In general, there are 2 types of coverage the rideshare companies can provide. Period 1 is when you have your app on until you accept a ride, and then periods 2 and 3 when you've accepted a ride through the passenger in the car until they get out of the car. So in period 1, again, it says app on until you accept a ride. Generally, you only have minimum liability coverage, which does not include comprehensive, collision, medical payments, or uninsured, underinsured coverage. In simpler terms, it includes limited damages to your car you hit and the other driver, but it does not include damages to your car or injuries that you sustain. In periods 2 and 3, once you accept a ride or have a rider in your car, you should be covered by the rideshare company's full commercial coverage, as required by the law, which in most states is $1 million in liability coverage. The second example, when you have the farmer's rideshare coverage, this takes your personal auto policy and extends it through period 1, app on through accepting a ride, and includes comprehensive, collision, medical payments, or uninsured, underinsured coverage if those are included in your policy. Additionally, if you lease your car, the minimum liability provided by the rideshare company may not meet lease agreement requirements prior to you accepting a ride. As an example, in most states, the minimum liability levels for rideshare in period 1 are $50,000 for bodily injury individual and $100,000 for bodily injury in total, while for a lease, it's $100,000 and $300,000 respectively. So we urge rideshare drivers to check that their coverage meets both state and leasing requirements. So moving to slide 7, how do you get this coverage? So Farmers was one of the first companies to offer rideshare coverage, with our first state being Colorado. We currently are in 5 states, including California, Utah, Arkansas, and Kansas. We continually evaluate new states and hope to bring a product to other states soon. Interested consumers can get more detail and find a local agent through our website, farmers.com/rideshare. If you're in a state that doesn't have an offering yet, reach out to your TNC provider or state official for additional information on what you can do to urge adoption of model rideshare legislation in your state. Thanks for your time, and we hope you've learned something from the session.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It looks like we have a ton of people joining us for this webinar. We want to thank Bill Wilson and Marielle DeVisa for coming on and discussing rideshare insurance with us. So we will move into these questions and try to knock them out as fast as possible. We have a lot coming in. To start, what's the average cost of coverage for Farmers rideshare? I know it varies, so a range would be great.
That's a challenging one because every driver is unique and the coverages that they choose are also unique. What we can say is that it is an endorsement on your personal auto policy, and what we had said as a general, it depends on the state, but we can say that as an example, in California, the additional cost would be 8%. In addition to your policy. So again, we wanted to bring an economical solution to the drivers, something that was based on their personal policy and that was a savings versus a commercial policy, which would be multiple times higher.
Can drivers purchase policies from 2 different providers? Meaning, can I have a Geico personal driver's policy with Farmers rideshare?
No, they cannot. So in order for our endorsement to work, you must have the underlying policy, has to be a farmer's policy, and then you would purchase the endorsement in addition to that.
If a rider damages a driver's car, is that covered under Farmers?
So when a passenger is in the car, that is the full TNC's rideshare coverage. That would not be part of our coverage.
Okay. Michael wants to know, if he drives for multiple TNCs, will he be covered for all of them under one policy?
Yes, they are. So we do not differentiate between rideshare companies. There are some that only provide coverage for one carrier or another. We provide coverage for all rideshare companies.
Great. To follow on, will Michael's insurance go up if he drives for multiple TNCs?
We have one price for our endorsement. So it's dependent on that individual's coverage and their history. But once they have that additional endorsement, the rideshare endorsement, they are covered regardless of which carriers they're driving for.
Oftentimes drivers are deactivated for one reason or another. They may have low ratings or received a ticket, or their car may no longer fall within the acceptable model range for the TNC. When the driver gets deactivated, does he have to put his policy on hold?
No, they would be able to stop the coverage on the endorsement. They would have to have the underlying auto policy in order for them to add it back on.
Interesting. This question is very straightforward since we know that you need both a driver's policy and farmer's rideshare, but I'm going to ask it since we'd like to have it in the recording for viewers. Will farmer's rideshare replace her regular insurance?
It's in addition to the insurance that they had. So it depends on their existing carrier. If they have a carrier that is not farmers, then yes, they would have to cancel that policy and start a new policy with farmers. So that is something to take into consideration, but we do offer insurance that meets all of your needs. So auto, home, business. We have a wide breadth of products and discounts that you would be able to take advantage of.
Awesome. Many drivers also work for food delivery companies. Does farmers have a policy for that?
So we continually evaluate changes in the market, and on-demand services are a new product, and currently we do not offer coverages specifically for them, but we continue to look at that.
Okay. So the next question is around bringing farmers to their states. You touched on this a little bit at the end of the recording, but how would users go about bringing farmers to their state?
Yeah, great question. I think that rideshare drivers that are unable to get coverage in their state, they should contact their rideshare partner or their state official to ask for additional details on what they can do to urge the adoption of model rideshare legislation.
Gary wants to know, if he's attacked or his car is damaged, is he covered under the policy?
So again, this would be a period in when a passenger is in the car, and that would be covered through the TNC's coverage that the state requires.
When does the farmer's rideshare policy begin and end while driving?
So for farmers, your personal policy is when you just turn your car on and you're doing your errands. When you turn your app on until you accept a ride, that is period 1, and that is the coverage that the farmer's rideshare endorsement would cover you for. So again, that would be app on, whichever app of rideshare company you are using, until you accept that ride.
Kevin wants to know, does he have to have a farmer's personal driver's policy to get farmer's rideshare?
Yes, they do.
Cool. A couple of our viewers have asked us tonight, how can they see where farmers is launching and also if they're coming to specific states?
The best way to do that is to just contact your local farmer's agent and have them give you a quote, and they can give you specifics on that. Or you can also go to our website for more information, which would be www.farmers.com/rideshare.
Sally from Texas wants to know, is there a limit to the number of hours they're allowed to drive for the TNC under the farmer's rideshare?
There is not a limit of hours. Again, what we're talking about is rideshare. This is primarily for folks who are doing this for extra money. It's not for folks who are, this is their primary business that, for example, in an Uber situation, they would be a black car driver. Our solution is not for those types of drivers. It's specifically for rideshare.
Lori from San Francisco wants to know what discounts there are available for drivers. Are there discounts available that take their TNC driver rating into consideration?
We offer the typical discounts and benefits that you would with a premium carrier. We have good driver discounts. We also have multi-policy discounts. So again, I think that each individual is different. Each driving scenario is different. So I would reach out to a farmer's agent. We have a very strong network across the U.S. of over 13,000 agents that can
Excellent. I was curious about that too.
at a local level.
Excellent. I was curious about that too. What about Sam wants to know if these users can Sam check from Baltimore wants to know
when
one of our viewers
is going
has
to
an
be coming to
interesting
their
question.
state.
How about?
So we are in 5 states currently. We are in Colorado, California, Kansas, Arkansas, and Utah.
Can he put his policy on hold?
And
Will
we
farmers
continually
rideshare
look at the
replace for
markets
regular
and
insurance?
are looking to enter. So I would
Xavier
circle
wants to
back with
know
your state
if he needs to have the
regulators or
app
your
on the entire
TNC to
time if
find
he
out
wants to
when
be
we're going to
covered
come
under
to a
the
market
rideshare
near you.
policy. All right. Sam here has an interesting question. Does the user have to have the Uber or Lyft app on the whole time to be covered under farmers?
No, so again, if you don't have the app on, you're covered under your personal policy, which would be your farmers, the underlying policy. When rideshare extra coverage comes into play is when you turn your app on until you accept the ride. So again, that driver has coverage in that period through the TNC. They have minimum liability coverage. What we're offering is giving that driver choice, so that if you choose to have more coverage, or you also are interested in comprehensive and collision, medical insurance, or underinsured, uninsured motorists, that you have the opportunity to buy that coverage as well. And in other words, what that means to you is that if you're with the collision, if these are things that happen to yourself and your car, you would be covered, which is not included with that minimum liability that the transportation network companies, your Ubers and your Lyfts would offer.
All right. So Alexandra wants to know, what is the difference between the policies for Uber and farmers, and do they have to get both?
So again, I would reach out to your transportation network company, your Ubers and your Lyfts, to understand their specific policies. What we are covering is the rideshare period in period 1. So again, our coverage would be whatever the driver selects as their underlying coverage. We would, if you buy the additional rideshare endorsement, that would extend whatever your underlying policy is when you're driving as a personal person. When you turn the app on, that would seamlessly extend into period 1 until you accepted the ride, and then at that point you would have the TNC's full commercial coverage, which is that $1 million of liability coverage.
Here's an interesting question. If a driver has 2 cars, one insured with, say, Geico, and the other insured with farmers, would both cars be covered?
So as far as the cars that they use, that's up to the TNC to provide whether they accept the car or not. As far as coverage, the car that has the endorsement, the additional endorsement, the farmer's policy plus the endorsement is what we would cover. Could they have another carrier? They could, but another thing to think about is that the more cars you have with one carrier, the better multi-policy discount you have. So something to talk about with an agent.
We have another user who's asking about the cost, and I know that you mentioned that it was about 8% in California. That's approximately the same in the other states that you offer as well?
Every state is different, and it would be dependent on each of the states, and again, it's dependent on the driver's history. So I would have them reach out to their agent to get a quote. Again, what we wanted to do is provide an economical solution. So this would be something that is in addition to your
Does farmers
underlying
cover every
base
TNC in the
personal
on-demand
policy,
space?
which, as we've seen, a commercial policy can be multiple times more expensive.
It looks like we're out of time, so let's grab one more question. Alexandra from New Jersey wants to know if her car is damaged or if she's an offender bender before she picks up a rider, is that covered under the policy?
So that would be, so our coverage is from app on until you accept the ride. When you are going towards that passenger or you are ready to accept that passenger into your car, that would be in period 2. And then 3 would be when they are in the car. That would be covered under the TNC's rideshare commercial coverage.
Got it. All right. Well, great. That looks like that is all the time that we have for today. I hope everyone enjoyed this webinar as much as we enjoyed organizing it. Thank you, Mariel and Bill, for joining us and providing a ton of value for our listeners.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, everyone. And we support Rideshare, so go out and get a quote from an agent.
Awesome. And for our listeners, look for this recording of the webinar in your inbox in the coming days, and have a fantastic day, all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.